How's that?
Hey, it's great.
It's great. Okay, we're recording there. We're recording there. I'm on Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
We're live. Mr. Sheldon Smith, welcome to the studio.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you so much
for having
me.
It's an honor. When Eileen reached out, I was like, Dovetail. I've been aware of I've been following this organization for a while.
Right.
And but it was only after she reached out when I started to do a deeper dive and the incredible work that you guys have been doing as an organization. It's been years now.
Yeah, 15.
And it's very personal to you.
Very, very personal.
Changing the lives of young fathers. Something that we desperately need in the city of Chicago.
That's right.
I thought of you the other day when I toured the new CFD CPD training facility, 701 North Kilbourne.
Okay.
And I got a tour, and we were talking amongst other educators and how we might get frustrated when a student shows up disheveled, unprofessional, uniform not tucked in. And he shared one example specifically of a student that didn't come clean shaven.
Okay.
And the educators were almost taken aback and were like, why are you disrespecting the department? And the student shared that they were never taught how to shave.
All right. Wow.
So I thought of you, and I was like, these are the soft skills that Dovetail Project is implementing in our youth.
That's right. That's right. But such an honor to be on with you, Victor. I would tell you that when we think about the work of working with these young men, particularly young fathers, I know you said Chicago, but when we think about it, this is a global issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That have affected so many individuals. I don't know if you had a chance. Did you grow up with your dad?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, thankfully.
Did he make a big impression on your life?
Yeah, he definitely set a standard of what it means to be a good person and a good role model for the people around yourselves as well. Yeah. You don't pay attention until maybe you spend some time apart, personally from my parents, the impact that they left on me.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate that that's what it takes sometimes, is a lot of people realize that maybe after a death of a loved one, of how meaningful that relationship was to them. If we were to chronologically go back to your personal story,
Yep.
You were also a community organizer and philanthropist at the age of 13.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Now, if I were to get my timeline correct, but like you ran into some trouble at around 17? 16, 17?
I ran into some trouble. 14, 15,
14,
16,
15.
Yeah, but 17 was the life-changing trouble.
Okay. So I guess who or what was the impetus to get you into philanthropy and community service in the first place?
Well, I'll say that my roots here in Chicago started in a community called Woodlawn.
Okay.
And so in Woodlawn, there was an organization by the name of MAGIC, which is a short acronym for Metropolitan Area Group for Igniting Civilization.
Oh, wow.
It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Joseph Strickland.
Okay.
And so he seen something greater in me. I was a knucklehead at the age of 12 and 13, running through the neighborhood. I was a big kid. And he looked at me and said, hey, let me teach you how to use your leadership skills for the positive, right? And so my first task was being trained around community organizing and then going out into the community and recruiting youth to join our youth-led organization to go out and fight for different policies that we believed in, such as immigration, HIV and AIDS, youth and gang violence. And so being down at the juvenile protesting and just falling in love with the work, not knowing that it would lead me here almost 20 years later. So.
And the struggle that I'm working through within the EMT class is to getting the students to buy into the process. Mm-hmm. So at age 12 or 13, what part of the process did you buy into or align with that enamored you with the work?
I think for any young child that's trying to figure out their way, just looking for that male mentor, looking for that energy. That's what led me there. I felt, as I look back, I feel like it was in me, but it was just the opportunity that was given to me to utilize it in the most effective way by a gentleman who really spoke the language, understood, put the oomph behind why it looks the way that it looks, but also knew how to energize me as a young person to use that strength to better the community and really fall in love with the work.
Yeah, I keep coming back to that of like trying to find the verbiage or the language to establish common ground with the ones that I see struggling or not caring. And it's just finding the verbiage to help them care about the work. And sometimes you come to the destination of you can't force someone to care. Have you come across that at all? Like, or is there a vetting process when people apply to the program that they might not be a good fit at this moment?
Yeah, I think our vetting process internally for dads is not that they wouldn't be a good fit.
Okay.
It's more of because we want to accept you how you are, right? If you are a young dad, 17 to 24 years old, you're struggling, you grew up with your father in and out of your life, you now become a father and you want to be the best man in the world for your family, for your community, right? And so being able to actually sit you down and just understand your why is what's important to us, right? Because we want you to really take advantage of an opportunity that'll provide you a job, a GD, or a trade, along with a $500 stipend, 1 year of continued support. And so in thinking about a young man coming in, the greatest struggle that we have is what Chicago suffers with, which is violence. And so our young men who have just been in the midst of violence and it being contagious, that it could damper the organization, meaning a shooting could take place or different things of that nature. And so we're not a violence prevention organization. We are a Fatherhood Initiative, and we accept all young men in the walks of life that they come from, whether they're prepared or not. It's just really just about like, hey, look, Victor, you're dead. Yeah. Someone looking for you. Yep. Okay. We need to refer you to a different program because that could damage someone else in the program.
I see.
And beyond that, you know, we take you as you are, how you are, and we help build you up and get you to that next place in life to be greater for your family and community.
It sounds like prior to applying, they've already done the self-work, the self-awareness work that they want to change and might not know how to change. I wonder how long does it take for someone to realize that they want to be better? And like, you know, when you see people just keep stumbling, it's just like, what do they have to go through in order to realize, like, what do I gotta do to like just change my life around?
I think we all want to be better, right? Whether we're a young dad or not, right? But you know, oftentimes in the world of parenting, bringing another life in could be scary. It could be tough. And a greater reality is looking back at yourself and wondering, hey, my dad wasn't there. What kind of man am I going to be? What type of father will I be? How will my child end up? Will I even see my child, right? And so I think about me being 21 years old and cutting the umbilical cord of my daughter and not knowing if I'll be alive in the next 6 months, right? And so, you know, so much of that is occurring for a young man who's starting behind the 8 ball, but he has found some help and support. He's looking to become better, and he's looking for that push. And so, you know, when we think about fatherhood, we never think about anyone 17 or 24. We think 28, 30, 32, right? But most of our children are born by parents at the age of, that's the highest birth rate that takes place for us, which is 17 to 24 years old. And when we think about the lack of support for fathers in general, right? Like if I asked you right now, hey, if a dad needs help, where could he go? What would you say?
Yeah, I probably only know 2 organizations off the top of my head.
Okay.
You being one of them.
All right.
Do you think it's a luxury to be able to spend time becoming self-aware?
A luxury?
Because a lot of the individuals in that situation, if I were to assume, and I hate that I have to assume, but are in difficult situations where they might need 2 or 3 jobs to hold it down, or they're facing felony charges, or just things that are outside of their control that inhibit them from staying on the right path. And so they don't even have the time to think about, what do I want in this life?
Right. Well, I would tell you that we call our young men mythbusters, right?
Okay.
Because these are young men who are not mandated to be at the program. They've signed up themselves. They've made this choice that they would like to make a different approach in life. And some of the young men who come to us, they have associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees or master's degrees. Two of our young men who completed the program are sheriffs. We have young men in banking. And so it's not just, hey,
I see.
This is a kid that's 17 to 24.
It's really truly about just fatherhood.
Right. It's a fatherhood dad approach in thinking about the work, right? And so that's why I'm here today on the show, to really move those myths to the side and really talk about a bright group of young men who continuously thrive as men every day to just be the best, to try to be better. And no matter what your financial or, where you live or what's going on in your world, right? We still struggle as parents. And so, and as human beings. But when we think about the young men we serve and just who they are, I think our biggest barrier is really, just trying to get the world to look at daddies differently, because they have feelings, they have needs, they have hurting parts of them, but they want to be better like any other parent, and not put them in a particular category and say, hey, I know, that it's this or that. These young men come in looking for a better path, a better way, and our job is to push them and get them there. And that's what we've been successful at doing.
Yeah. I feel like almost every episode, if not every other episode, I come back to how much, how much kids want to be seen, but how much parents want to be seen as well.
Yeah.
And I try to remind myself that I came from a family that didn't say I love you, or not a lot of, physical touch or physical affection. So hugs were very foreign to me. And it wasn't a lot of who I am today I owe to my friendship circles. But knowing that now, I try to give my parents a lot of grace, despite the lack of communication or the amount of initiative I would like to see from them. I try to give them grace. And I guess with your organization, what are some practical steps you share with these individuals on how to be an exemplary father?
Well, the first thing is fatherhood isn't perfect, right? And I think the greatest father that you can be is yourself. And so when we think about what we empower our young men to do, it's just continue to be themselves and to strive for greatness and looking for help and support. I think oftentimes those circles that we need, the circle you just spoke of that influenced you, doesn't exist. And so when these young men arrive at the Dovetail Project, that's what they have. They have a brotherhood and a circle that they can lean on. I don't want to speak about the Dovetail Project like when our fathers come in, they aren't already equipped. All we're doing is merely giving them the room, platform, and structure to take their energy and drive it in the right direction to just be the greatest dads in the world. Like you'll see these dads walk in and they have their babies with them. It's so cute. It's adorable. You'll hear them talking about stories with the baby in the womb and how the baby can learn. And they're like, what? You'll hear them like, hey, my baby on the way. Like, how should I act during labor? And so these are human moments that occur that the world don't oftentimes see, particularly from dad, because he's the protector, he's the provider, he's moving, grooving, trying to make ends meet to move his family along. And oftentimes when dad isn't present, that's not our mindset. It's more of like mom. It's not until you get older and you like, okay, I'm a dad now. Okay, I knew why dad was tired. Oh, I know why dad couldn't make it to the baseball practice. Like,
I see.
It's that reality that sets in about a subject that has been overlooked, tied up with myths, and really not paid attention to. And so, again, our job is to shine that bright light on such an important subject to so many of us. Like you pretty much can talk to any human from any walk of life and ask them their fatherhood story. No matter what their economic status is or what community they come from, and you'll get a roller coaster. You'll get up, down, all around, and you'll either hear it made them, or it broke them, or it brought them to a particular point. And so when we think about that issue, it's like it's such a global non-community lying issue that it has its own legs and it exists on its own. And so I'm grateful to be behind it.
That's incredible. It just restores that human condition, right? Everything else, it seems like everything else doesn't matter at that point in time.
That's right.
When you're just trying to be the best human being you can, which in effect would be the best father you can be.
That's right. Well, and I think if you are being that, the first thing you're doing if you need help is reaching out for help and support.
Yeah.
The only question is where is that help? How can they help?
Yeah.
And is that help sufficient enough to continue to drive you forward?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm curious as to what they had to go through in order to feel humble enough to ask for that help.
If I could answer that.
Please. Oh, yeah, if you have an answer.
So I think that looks different. I mean,
Sure.
You have young men who will say, I'm just tired of the streets in the neighborhood. I want to do something different, right?
Oh, okay.
You'll have young men saying, hey, my dad was in and out of my life, and I just want to be different. Or you'll have a young man to come in and say, hey, I'm working. I have a high school diploma. I'm making great money. I'm taking care of my family. But at the end of the day, I'm still missing a few skills. And I would love to be around some gentlemen that can help me and then be a part of the program too as well. And so we see them from all walks of life. It's not really one area I can point in to say to you, hey, this is the reason why they're with us.
Okay.
It looks completely different.
If we were to go back to your personal journey, what did it look like when you started to realize that you might need help?
Help at which time? At 17?
Right. Let's. Did you have any realizations or awakenings prior to becoming a father? Did you know that you were kind of going down this wrong riffraff path?
I was going through the path of every teenager goes through, right?
Okay.
And so you got the good and you got the bad.
Yeah.
And so many people expected me to do good all the time.
Oh, wow.
Right. And as a young person, you want to live up to that. But when, the truth and reality is when you go to a program as a young person to get help and support, you still have to leave and go home to the same environment you left from to go and receive the support. And you're between the ages of 14 and 18, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're an adolescent and mistakes are there to happen. I think for me, the greater part of getting in trouble and turning my life around was that it was my purpose and this is who I was meant to be. And I just had a different opportunity from everybody else. My mentors still stuck with me when I let them down. And they were there side by side, got me back in high school, continued to push me. And here I am today. And so I give the credit to the community that surrounded me, even in my wrongdoing. Oftentimes, if you are a young person and you make a mistake today, that mistake can cost you. And so it just looked completely different. But mentorship got me here right now.
But at what point did you wake up to the fact that this mentor never gave up on me and I keep stumbling? Something's wrong.
Probably.
What happened? What you're something's got to change.
A variety of things. I think before my daughter was born, I got into some trouble that I thought I could get myself out of.
Okay.
And I can't make this same mistake again because, again, I was 17 years old, charged with armed robbery. I went to jail as an adult, and I didn't get a shortcut, right? It wasn't until the letters came in from my football coaches and from community members saying that this is actually a great kid, wrong place, wrong time. They gave me a break. And I just made a promise to myself right then and there that I wouldn't get in trouble again. And I kept going. And so when I was having Jada, two things happened in the room. The first thing is me and my father wasn't on talking terms. So I didn't have him to call. I called my mother. I was crying. But the realization of not having that male role model and figure there to call and just say, Dad, she's here, that's a real reality. But also leaving out of that room, I also said I had her just in case if anything happened to me, I could leave something on this earth. So it wasn't even, just, teen pregnancy, or it was more of, man, I'm gonna die and I just want to leave something here, and so that was more on my heart as a 21-year-old. And every time a year went by and I was still here and still here and still here. Okay, another year going by. Okay, my gosh, she's a freshman. She's a sophomore. I'm bald. And he's just laughing. And when I say he, I mean God is just laughing and saying, like, take you away from here. I got a greater purpose for you. And realizing that purpose and going through that made me who I am, but not knowing that would be the story to save so many fathers. That would be the story to drive me to create a one of one that exists in this country, which is working with young dads 17 to 24. And that was that driving point. But, you know, I just said to someone like, hey, look, like in the last 6 months, I've gotten unscared about the future. And they was like, you know, like, what you mean? And I was like, you know, I woke up so many days just scared that now I realize my greater purpose. And oftentimes it takes us to grow out of that trauma, to reflect on our lives, and to just take it one step at a time, right? Because you can't rush things out of your brain, and you can't rush true feeling. You have to just let that process take place and grow. And look at that growth and understand what it was and what to keep and what to throw away to just continue to thrive, to be better. And so that's the way that I've lived my life.
Amazing. What were some conversations, if you remember, that your mother was trying to have with you as you were going through this tough time before Jada? Of just like, what were some steps that she was trying to utilize to keep you in and out of, you know, not in, but out of jail, right? Out of trouble.
Best mother in the world.
Yeah.
Her first step was allowing me to be in Magic.
Okay.
Her second step was allowing me to play football at the YMCA locally.
Okay.
Her third step was just being an incredible mom and an example, someone that I seen wake up at 5 a.m, get here at 8 p.m.
It's tough to be a parent. Did she have multiple jobs?
No, just one, but
One
was
job.
a hard worker, right?
Right.
Like someone that I admire and appreciate because of her grind and work ethic. And I was a knucklehead. I was just a knucklehead. She was either at the school or at the police station. But,
oh, wow.
Right. Steadily telling me, I can't keep missing days because you da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just being a knucklehead.
You don't see it from that perspective at that age.
I didn't, right? I was just trying to survive. I was just a young kid growing up trying to make it out of what we call the hood and get somewhere with my life and expand my life expectancy. And so again, like, here I am.
Do you have any advice for parents or maybe sometimes single parents that are at wit's end and they've come to the conclusion that they might have to just kick their kid out because their kid isn't learning anything?
Ooh. My advice is don't kick your kid out because a kid is going to be a kid and they're going to have their tracks of learning. I think oftentimes as parents, we get it wrong because we don't even realize some of the pressure we put on our own children with the lives that we live. And, you know, and we want them to look at us and appreciate certain things. And as adults, we make mistakes too as well. And we oftentimes don't reflect back on when we were their age. But I would tell, you know, any adult, don't ever give up on your child. And if your kid is taking you through a trying time, go through that moment with them, and you all will reflect about that in the future. Like, Mom, you know, I'm 28 now. You remember when I was a knucklehead and and so she's laughing like, yeah, my mother told me, like, I can't wait to show you these tapes. I can't wait for you to see how you was, right? And so, you know, it's our parents' job to give us what the universe doesn't, and that's space and time, love, growth, and respect for us to figure it out. And I think that's the scariest part for most parents. It's like they force like, figure it out. You need to figure it out. And it's like, but Mom, you an adult, or Dad, you an adult, and you still haven't figured it out, right? And it's like, but don't be me, be better than me. It's like, but that's not adding up anymore.
So then have you broken that down into practical steps at Dovetail?
In what way when you say that?
Yeah, into steps that these individuals that come to the organization can immediately use. Yeah. Like, how can they be better parents and explain themselves in situations where it might be difficult to have a conversation?
Yeah, well, I'll give you our breakdown internally, which is the Dovetail Project in our approach of becoming a curriculum-based initiative,
Yeah.
we decided to teach our young men felony street law,
Okay.
parenting skills, and then life skills, right?
Okay.
And so the purpose of our felony street law component is to make these young men not only aware of how to be engaging with law enforcement, but to think about family law and the different hurdles that they may go through in custody battles, divorce dad, really trying to figure it out. Hey, look, I'm struggling. I want to just know how to deal with child support, right? And so when people think of dad, they don't really think of those issues, right?
Right.
Why is it important for him to learn the law?
Right.
The life skills is them being able to have the soft skills to do resume building and tying, going to do mock interviews and getting extremely community exposure so that they can take their families out to visit certain parks and restaurants and other things of that nature. And then finally we get to fatherhood. And before we talk about dad, we talk about what manhood means. How do you define manhood? And, in what ways do you want to be a better man? And then we go into then we go into fatherhood and that, hey, look, who was your dad? How was he? And how don't you either repeat that or how do you pick up some of what he did and continue to be greater, right? And they finish and have a graduation ceremony, which is like this spectacular moment where our young men are being congratulated and loved on. And oftentimes when you're a dad and you take on responsibility, like, who's running to you and saying, "Hey, congratulations, we love right, right, right." It's mom, though, it's different, and so them having this day to be recognized, to be appreciated, to just be highlighted. They take this day serious. Their families are there. We celebrate them. And we provide our young men with a $500 stipend once they complete the program, right? And that's our gift to them to say, continue to stay on that path, continue to be great, continue to be your children's hero, and continue to be a beacon of light we all can look to if anything go wrong in the community. We know dad is going to take care of it and fix it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So many ripple effects I'm sure you guys are having, like whether it's healing obviously the individual that's in the organization, but what if you healed like their relationship with their parents?
That's right.
Right?
That's the generational effect we often talk about.
We stop it here and now.
Right. Well, ours is when you save a father, you save a generation. Right? Every time you save a dad and that dad is able to impact his family, you just impacted a generational. You just removed the entire generational curse from this family of them being together and loving and having that individual that's going to fight and push them all in the right direction. And so that's why when we talk about parenting and fatherhood and so many people just look over the parenting part, that long-term effect is a serious thing, and so when we see our young men who are strong alumni, and just, we were at the Bears game and I ran into one of our alumni and he had his youngest son with him. And so the Chicago Bears are one of our sponsors and we didn't give him the tickets that he had to be at the game. This was just something he was doing and we just ran into him at the game. And
nice.
When you think about those long-term effects, he's like, when he's seen us, he's like, look, y'all see what I'm doing? I'm with my youngest, right? And so us taking pride in our work, but understanding that this is working, that these young men are being impacted, that it does go down to the next generation. And, when the children say, hey, dad, like, who helped you be a better parent? They'll be saying, hey, it was Dovetail, or my dad, right? Or my granddad, but it was Dovetail.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Leaving such an impact. Do you try to keep tabs on the individuals that make it through the program?
Yeah, I would say we don't try, we do.
We do.
That's our secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
Our secret sauce in engaging more and more fathers across the city of Chicago from every walk of life and background is our alumni. And them going out and recruiting other dads and telling them about it and them enrolling in the program. But when we think about engaging our alumni, giving them a chance to go to games or, be a part of giving goods away in the community for relief and them going out and volunteering their time to work with students and kids. That's our base of how we know this work is great, and also that is the greatest reflection of impact, which is the people you're impacting, them taking it and
paying it forward.
That's right.
Right. But do you, like at certain checkpoints, like maybe 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you're like, how is this person doing if they haven't reached out, on their own behalf?
So we have intense case management. We work with our young men over 24 months. So it starts as soon as they graduate the program.
I see.
Week 1, week 3, week 8, depending on where we're seeing you progress at and decline at.
Sure.
Is where we either speed it up or slow it down or re-engage. But it's not when you leave us, you're left alone, right? We have moms who call. And shout out, I want to shout out my director of programs, Vernon Owens. And so he's on the phone with mom, and she's like, I need you to get over here to the house right now. He's not listening, right?
Is that something you guys do?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah, we stand in the gap. And so the moment is just so crazy because you'll see a 24-year-old man turned 12, like, oh my God, they're here. I wasn't yelling at mom. I'm gonna, and so that community, that relationship, that sense of responsibility,
accountability,
and accountability, we're grateful for.
Wow. Walk me through now, going back to the personal timeline.
Yep.
Falling in love.
Yep.
And then becoming a father, getting pregnant.
Yep.
And then, walk me through that process.
Yeah, I would say for me, again, it wasn't falling in love, right? It was more of, I'm 20. All of my friends around me are dying. I think I'm next. I want to leave a baby behind.
That was your motivation?
Period.
Oh, what?
Right here with Victor. Here's the truth.
God bless Jada.
That's right. And Jada could, Jada still to this day is like, why are you always telling these old stories of who he was? You're dead now, right? So, but I was such a knucklehead. I did so many things wrong. I was considered a bad boy, and I took it to heart. It was, the claim to fame. I'm the guy that dominates in elementary.
Bad can I be?
I dominate in high school. I'm a ball player, and then that the realization of, okay, look, he got shot. Those 3 people died. You up next. You need to have a baby. Prepare to die. And if you're not here, she'll be okay. Foolish of me. But, this is Sheldon Smith saying this to you. So if we were speaking to some of my young fathers, you could just imagine some stories young men will be saying, like, it wasn't just I was this knucklehead teenager having unprotected sex, and she ended up pregnant, and we loved each other. And, while all those things may be, the reality behind my situation was, I did not think I would be here. This is something that I repeat all the time, say all the time. If anyone know me, during my birthday every year, I'm crying all the time because I just realized how far I've come and where I'm at and the position I was in my 20s, being a knucklehead and walking away from that life to really launch the Dovetail Project and really walking on faith that as I turned my life around, that I would be forgiven and no one would do anything to me, right? I mean, oftentimes when we want to walk out of the life and leave the life alone, it's too late. It's too late for you to say, hey, look, don't hurt me. I'm saving the world now. It doesn't work like that, right? And so that was a real reality. But I would tell you, me always being a stand-up guy, I got those passes. And again, here I am. So when I'm working and people look at me, they're like, Sheldon, why you always on fire? Why you fired up all the time? Like, why you always
I'm alive.
Right. Tell him, Victor. But this is the reality if you've had to face death at such a young age, right? Like, it's a reality. And so many of our young people face that. And oftentimes when we look in, like in a place like Chicago, that's not understood in that way. And most of the time, young people don't know how to communicate that. But people do things for a variety of reasons, and that was the reason why I did what I did.
So, kind of exploring that anecdote of like people do things for different reasons. Like when you see, Kias and Hyundais being stolen or just businesses being looted. We were burglarized on Thursday, not by a teen, by someone who was probably going through a behavioral emergency. And all they stole were boots and pants. Dumb. But when you see these things, and they might not be fathers, but when you see these things, like, what do you think, what is the reason why they're doing this?
I'll say, again, when you're a kid, you think like a kid, walk like a kid, talk like a kid. It wasn't until, at least for me, when I went to jail, I thought about the things that I was doing as a kid that got me there. But a lot of times when I look at the young people making these mistakes, sometimes it's ignorance. Sometimes it is a lack of parenting. Sometimes it is just being a minor and doing something crazy. I don't look at it as a motivating factor. Like, hey, I woke up this morning, I want to figure out what car I want to take, right?
No,
it's like, this is my circumstances. This is the way my friends are having fun. I'm following them.
Okay.
This is something that we're doing. We did it. It's not going to hurt anyone. That's not going to do anything. Like, so, and again, I find it to be foolish because to take a car, number one, taking something from someone is not right. But two, you're taking something that could track directly back to you and you go straight to jail.
This inability to think long term, right?
That's right.
And I'm trying to explore what feelings that they're chasing. So maybe we can find a substitute for these feelings.
I don't want to say it's a feeling being chased. I want to say that there's a gap of learning that's missing. Because with the right person, which is a parent, particularly mom and dad, you move differently. An accountability is held differently. And with my father was such an influence in my life that when he was around, I did the best. When he wasn't, and I did the worst. And I always knew that, I would be extremely bad if dad was here, but I happen to do pretty well. Okay. But that's not everyone. I had male mentors to shelter me and hold me. Young people today have social media and they're looking for their personality. And it's, they're not in the streets playing football anymore. And so it just, everyone is at home on the video game. It's not the same humanistic feeling that we once felt. And that's no excuse for wrongdoing. Right. But we have to be mindful of the time change and where young people are right now in playing these video games that are influencing them to continuously think immature and do immature things. And oftentimes you have young people that are they're ignorant and they are making bad mistakes that I hope that they're forgiven for one day, because I was a young man who made a lot of bad mistakes and the universe forgave me. And now I'm able to just help impact so many lives with that story and narrative. So
Right. Yeah, I gotta talk to a few of those gun violence or gang violence organizations and see if there is an ability or opportunity to cut it before it gets too late. Because I know those organizations also probably respond to trauma centers after someone's been shot as well, and that's, we want to hopefully catch it before then, right?
Right. I mean, but as some of the great violence interrupters and advocates I know would say is, how do you prevent violence before it starts, right? Like, if me and Victor are at school, right? Nobody's around. It's just me and you in a lunchroom, and we get mad at each other. It's not a sense in the air or an alarm around that's detecting me and you getting into it, right? It's a sense of, it started at school. Victor, I stepped on his shoe. He said, you're not going to step on my shoe and get away with it. And it has escalated into the streets. And oftentimes, with it escalating and immaturity taking place, immature things happen.
Okay, I like that.
And young people make mistakes.
Yeah.
But you look at a lot of people who are serving life sentences, and you ask them about their childhood, they'll say, I was a young knucklehead. I made some mistakes, and I'm telling young people out here right now, don't make those same mistakes so you don't end up in here. And so that reality sits in, and a lot of times it's too late. The damage is done, the activity has happened, and people feel the way that they do.
Yeah, yeah. So Jada's born.
Yep.
Where did you get help at that time, or were you kind of struggling on your own with Jada?
When you say get help, what you mean?
Get help. Dovetail wasn't around, right? So like, if you were to look for help, I'm not sure if you were looking for help, but like, how was that process becoming a father?
That's an excellent question. I wouldn't say that I got help. I would say that I knew what it meant to be a responsible young man. And at that moment, all immaturity went out the window.
Wow.
Right?
At birth or during
birth. She
during
saved
pregnancy?
Me. At birth.
At birth.
At birth, because the thing about it is when you are a knucklehead young man and you're doing immature things, daughters change you. Shout out to all the dads with daughters. Okay. And so when I have our students in the room, I often say, hey, who got sons and daughters? Did it change you? And most of the time the men say, I got boys. Nobody changed me, right? Like, I wanted to put me in him. But when I had baby girl, my voice had to change. Hey, baby. I would be like, hey, baby. And so I had to turn into this
little softy.
That's right.
Okay.
Hey, baby girl. And so, but I mean, everything from like planning ahead to coloring to using cars to build houses to taking buckets and lining them up and playing ball to, Jada could throw a football today. Yeah. Like, so I got a great baby girl. So we've continued to do our thing. But me in that moment, I knew as a young dad that I wanted to be in this young lady's life and impact her life for her to be the greatest individual in the world. And I wanted that process to take place. And so it did. And I'm just proud of who my baby girl is right now and what she has developed into being and what I've poured into her. But her birth changed me because there's a reality when you cut that umbilical cord. There's a life, there's a living individual that has now entered into the universe. And no matter how you cry and who you yell to, the responsibility is there. And so as a gentleman who prides myself in being perfection, a perfectionist, I wasn't going to settle. So I wasn't going to, that part of it you didn't need to put in me. It was more of, she here. Are you ready to change? She here. Yeah. Would you want a young man to treat her? She's here. You need to, change this way or not go over here. Or you got to think about how to get back to her at home at night. And just all of those things that take place when you're 21 and you're a young dad and you're trying to figure it out.
It sounds like a very healthy perspective at 21. I feel like as a new parent, they might want to provide more opportunities that they ever had for their children, in the sense of like they're coming from the perspective of this is a new version of myself, and they're kind of holding part of their identity into their children rather than their children as a separate being, a separate individual with their own goals and aspirations. And so I wonder if you've come across fathers that put a lot of pressure. I know these are new fathers, so maybe they're just babies and kids, but we're just individuals in general of like just try to impart their own goals on their kids.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's natural and normal.
Yeah.
I think the thing that got me over that was having a great mentor, a gentleman by the name of Michael Alter. He owns the Chicago Sky.
Oh, great.
And so one day I asked him, I was like, will the kids, take this thing over? And he's like, my dad put that pressure on me. I didn't want to put it on them. I wanted them to live their own lives. And to me, that was foreign. Because growing up poor, this is what you dream of, right? It's not until you realize that there's another side to living that's not the correct way to go.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't my kids want this?
Right, or to the kids, why wouldn't you want that? Right, like,
yeah, it's like it's on a silver platter. It's right, like, here it is.
No, I want to be a teacher. Like, no. So, just thinking about that and speaking to our young men and hearing some of them go through this debate of, well, I do want them to be like me, but honestly, I want them to be better, right? Like, nah, like, this is that way. And so us having those mature conversations are needed. But, when we think about just parents and what they want, they've already planned it out like, no, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to, right? You have no other choice. And so, but, when we step back and allow our children to be them, what we find out is that our DNA shines and they wind up coming back to our side of the table anyway, right? And so that's one thing that I am confident about with my baby girl, which is it's like, it's no need for me to pressure her up about my world. She's such a leader that no matter which part of the table she lands on, I just want her to be comfortable and dig in and be the greatest, right? And so we have this rule of like, hey, if you're going to go all the way. And so that's what we live by.
Okay. If someone were to apply, what does the program entail? It's 12 weeks.
Yep.
Is it Monday through Friday or 7 days a week? Like, what is it like?
So we say it's 36 hours of your life, which is less than 24 hours. So the young men meet once a week.
Oh.
For 12 weeks, for 3 hours. And we have 4 different classes.
Okay.
So 4 different classes. So
like cohorts that going on at the same time.
That's right.
Okay,
So 10 young men in each class. So serving 40 young men. They come to class once a week for 12 weeks. We pick them up. We drop them off. We provide lunch. So it's no excuses, right? Like,
really? Yeah.
Where you at? We picking you up. We're going to drop you off. You're going to eat lunch. And so what my director of program says,
no, you didn't.
Right. And so Director Owens always says, this is a private school for dads, right? So, we want to make sure that there is not one excuse that you can make, right? Like, I'm not, I don't have transportation. We'll get you back and forth, right? Like, I need diapers. We have a relief pantry. We'll give you diapers, wipes, and any other goods that you need, right? So we're the full package in supporting young fathers 17 to 24. And I'll say it didn't start this way. We started with $100 stipend and struggling as a young nonprofit. But because of all of our private supporters, corporations, individuals, and foundations, we stand here today as a thriving agency supporting all young dads across the city of Chicago between the ages of 17 to 24.
I wonder how many of those individuals want to become entrepreneurs.
Well, I'll say oftentimes, I would say out of a cohort of 40, maybe about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because, if you live the entrepreneur lifestyle, then you know that oftentimes there's not the stability. And so trying to manage
fatherhood
that's right.
And entrepreneurship.
The first thing they want to do is earn, right? Like, Sheldon, look, I want to get in this trade and earn. I want to go over here and get this forklift certification and earn. Working here at the hospital, I would like to get a certification in management so I can earn more, right? They're in that beginning mindset of development. And so that's what we see from most of our young men.
Maybe these individuals come back. Maybe you're going to have another class eventually, an entrepreneurship class.
Yeah, well, I would say entrepreneurship class, and also just everything 2.0 for dads 25 and above, right? When we think about our young men now being 30 and 35 and different things of that nature, and thinking about what does alumni expansion look like with the body, that's what we think of.
Is currently 40 students or 40 individuals the sweet spot? Or is there a bottleneck? Like, if you could grow that class size, would you?
Yeah, so that's what we are focused on now. We are scaling our infrastructure to add additional capacity so that we can take on an additional 400 fathers a year, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we, being a 15-year-old agency, being a pillar in the field of fatherhood, being on the forefront of the work, oftentimes we're called from around the country. It can be anywhere from, federal government to the state government to, just Head Start. Any place you're thinking of, they're calling us and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? How can we use these practices?
Yeah.
Is it working? Can we get involved? And so for us, we're now saying, hey, look, we're 15 years old. We've done the work.
Yeah.
We've collected the data. We have the sponsors and supporters. We've built the blueprint. It's now time to take this pot and expand it to scale up and impact more fathers from across the city of Chicago.
So you're in multiple locations around the country?
No. So fortunately enough for us, we have a few supporters who've stepped up to help us build our place called home. And so we're actively, continuously raising capital to build out our new facility that will house and support.
So people around the country will come to you. Is that the plan?
Well, let's say people across Chicago come to us. So
I see.
We're not looking at replication and outside of Illinois right now.
Yeah.
Chicago is under such
I appreciate that.
stress
Yeah, it is.
that it is important that we maintain our focus to continue to build this city that I called home, that has been able to pour so much into these dads and our organization to help advance Chicagoans with what they need, and eventually whatever takes place in the future takes place. But our focus right now is making sure that our city is known for the great parts of it and not just what people hear on the news, because Chicago is a beautiful city.
It is. It is. What's a pain point at the moment in addition to scaling? Like what could you use help with right now?
Victor, you are helping. So I want to say that because being on this platform and having a chance to speak to you about these young men and to talk about just why fathers are special and what their thought process is the greatest barrier, right? Like oftentimes to get the world to look at dad in a soft and fuzzy way, that's the greatest battle, right? It's not, it's not recruiting the fathers. It's not finding the resources for the dads. It's really continuously building up a base of supporters who believe in the mission of fatherhood, who believe that all dads, no matter where they come from, they need this help and support, and that they would like to invest in it. And so that has been our greatest barrier in coming on platforms like this to continue to move those narratives and stories are really what's important when we think about where we're at right now as a 15-year-old agency.
Do you guys do kind of tours with sponsors and donors? Like give them a little tour of the program, and when individuals are actively in the process, like you guys do that?
So we do tours, we do family nights, we host events at donors' homes, we have our guests at graduation and our supporters at graduation. So those things work, right? I think particularly when we talk about like the struggles of fatherhood and the way that the world look at it, again, it's like, shout out to all the mothers out there before I say what I'm about to get ready and say, but when we see mom and she has the babies, it looks cute. It's like, what can we do to help, right? And like when you see dad and he's not shaved, remember shaved, we spoke about that earlier, right? He's not shaved, but he's pushing a baby down the street, he didn't, it doesn't look and feel the same. But these fathers are active, right? They're looking for help and support. They're actively begging for change. And to just get the world to look at fatherhood and to love on it differently has been a task. But we've continued to, take strikes at it, and we've seen it continuously go up. So we're grateful for what the future brings to it. But when I think about other organizations across the country and their struggles as agencies in this work, they feel it as well, which is, hey, how do we get more philanthropists to really say, hey, we want to build a $100 billion fund for the field of fatherhood, or a $500 billion fund for the field of fatherhood, to help change it, right? Like, that's my greatest dream, is finding the philanthropist that is ready to take that much capital and really say, hey, we want to scale up the work of fatherhood across the United States in all of these different pockets, so that fathers know that they have the help and support that they need. In looking at a place like Chicago and the Dovetail Project, like, we could make this happen anywhere, right? And that's our message. Our message is not, hey, we would like to arrive in your backyard. our message is, hey, how can we help you advocate in your own backyard and you take control of what fathers need locally in your community as an agency that's been able to do the work.
And it's and you guys have a great media team, like as far as like trying to showcase the work that you're doing, because I think with this EMT class, it started as a nonprofit, and then I didn't know how to write a grant, look for grants, any of that process. So, but I was told there's plenty of money out there, you just have to go find it.
That's right.
But what these donors and funds and sponsors want to see is where their money's going. So if you can do a great job at showcasing how successful the individuals that go through the organization are, the money will come. Because I think there are people
I would say somewhat, right?
Okay.
Because another part of it for some philanthropists is some philanthropists want to believe in the leader's dream and funds the leader's dream. It's not necessarily action, right? And so some people want to see action. Some want to see data.
I see.
Some would like to just say, hey, look, my dad was in and out of my life. I see what you guys are doing, Victor. I want to give, right? And you like, can I get 10 more people like this? And it's like, no.
If only.
Right. And so, but, I would say that, our work has been the mix of it all, right? Some of our donors and supporters have said, hey, Sheldon, send us the data. And they've donated on that behalf. Some have seen it in action. And some have just said, hey, anecdotally, I love what I see. And I believe in what I see. And I feel like this is going to make our city a better place. Here's capital to help you continuously go. And so I would just tell any nonprofit leader out there that's like, hey, how to really get to this place of being a multi-million-dollar agency privately, and to get it done is just stay consistent, believe in the work, project that belief, and the energy will come. Right, a lot of what has taken place from us has been organic. We didn't reach out to Ellen. Ellen team wind up calling us. We didn't reach out to People Magazine. They wind up calling us. We applied for CNN Heroes, but the stories that they did later came directly from them contacting us. And so us having a chance to work with so many individuals that believe in this work has been world and mind changing.
Sheldon, that's all I had for now. If you ever want to come back, just let me know. But
all right.
I don't want to waste your time. We're at the hour mark.
Okay. Not a waste of time.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you still want to share or manifest out in the world?
I think the greatest thing that I would just like to share for all of the listeners out there, if you are a dad, stay encouraged. If you are struggling with your father being in and out of your life, it's two things. One is you've realized you're the greater hero, or the second thing is you forgiving them and go back for that forgiveness to heal yourself, to continue to be greater for your friends and family. And so I would just encourage individuals to do that. I think we all go through a level of disappointment and not knowing how to deal with it when it comes to our parents. And so oftentimes we have to look in. Sometimes we do outgrow our parents, right? And sometimes we need to forgive. And so I would just ask anyone out there, just for the love of parents, mothers and fathers, to just forgive, love, continuously be great. And to all our dads out there, we love you and we'll continue to keep fighting for you. So thank you, Victor.
Damn. Sheldon, you make us so proud to be a Chicagoan. Thank you for showing this city so much love. For everyone listening, see you in the next episode. Go give Dovetail Project a follow. Stay tuned on what Sheldon and the team are doing. But we'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Thank you.